Shalom, guys. Welcome back to another episode here, or another Torah portion. Before we get started, I have two questions. It's a very serious Torah portion, a very important Torah portion, a turning point for the people. And I was meditating some questions as I was reviewing everything that we have read, every book, every Torah portion, and I was wondering, it's like when Noah, for example, when he built the ark and put all these animals in the ark, what or which of those animals did he might have had a hard time trusting? And after thinking, I found the answer, and it is the cheetah. Get it? Cheetah. All right, just one more question that I was meditating on. So in the Bible, right, that we know of, which one was the first person that was able to download from the cloud into two tablets, right? I know you know the answer, right? Moses. Okay, I hope you don't unsubscribe to my channel. Please subscribe. Don't go. Stay there. We're going to start. Let's get there. So, shalom. Welcome back. Yes, my jokes are good. Good, at least that's what I think. Hope you like them. But before we started in this Torah portion, it has a very frustrating situation in which we will open with. But before we do the Torah portion, let's do a Torah blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim benatan lanu et torato Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah. Bless Adonai who's blessed. Bless Adonai who's blessed now and forever. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has chosen us from among the people and has given us the Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who has given the Torah. Amen. So, like I said, this week's Torah portion is SHELACH, LECHA, send for yourself. And it starts in Numbers 13, verse 1 through chapter 15:41. The Haftarah portion is Joshua, chapter 2, verse 1 to chapter 2, verse 24. And Brit Hadashah, the New Testament portion, is Hebrews chapter 3, verse 7 through chapter 4, verse 1. And it's very interesting because this week's Torah portion starts off with the spies and the people that were sent, the leaders that were sent into the land to check on the land, to inspect the land militarily, to prepare a military approach to the land. And the Torah portion opens up by God telling Moses, you send for yourself, and there's a lot of opinions on what does this mean. Rambam and different rabbis on was this God's purpose, was this God's intention, or based on Deuteronomy chapter 2, it explains that it was the people's intention, that they wanted to double check, right, the land and make sure and see what they were about to encounter. And it is one of the points that Moses brings up to them, right? So a little summary of what we're going to talk about. The Israelites had been through a lot after their miraculous deliverance from Egypt, like we have read. First, they were led to the Mount Sinai, where Moses was given the Torah, and the people were ratified as God's covenant children. Next, the Levitical priesthood was established, and the tribes of Israel were meticulously arranged military camp in a formation around the tabernacle, the dwelling place of the Lord. After camping at Sinai nearly a year, the presence of God lifted in a cloud from the tabernacle, and the tribes began their march to the promised land. But after just 3 days into the journey, the people began to complain of their difficulties, and God sent fiery judgment. A bit later, they began to miss the free fish of Egypt, and God sent them a plague of quails. And Miriam then slandered Moses' leadership, and God temporarily exiled her with leprosy. Our Torah portion opens up with the presence of God and Israelites in Kadesh in the desert near the edge of the land of Canaan. Moses then commissioned 12 spies, one prince from each of the 12 tribes, to go into the land of Canaan and bring back a report. The spies returned 40 days later with an outraged story and samples of the extraordinary fruit that grew in the land. However, 10 spies also gave a discouraging report, indicating their lack of faith that the people could conquer the land. That is one of the foundations of this opening Torah portion, the SHELACH, LECHA. And the commentaries explain that some say that it was the people's little faith that wanted them to make sure that they were able to go and to conquer the land. Some say that, it was God's commanded. Some interpret it as God basically saying, if you insist, send for yourself leaders. It's very interesting, when you think about it, is, this whole time that they have been in the desert, this whole time that they have been delivered from oppression, and they have been guided through this whole time. They have complained, they have done so many things, and the only one that has protected them and guided them is Elohim. And so this moment of analyzation, and they wanted to see how they can plot a military approach to this, does lead to a very interesting thought of where was their faith. And it's tested, and they have been tested, and they have complained, and they have rejected many things, the food, the protection to an extent. And so I wouldn't be surprised, right? Also, it talks about, it shifts to the dramatic narrative, discuss various laws of sacrifice. Also, it talks about the tzitziot. It talks about the Shabbat and the importance of it, and the holiness of it. Today we're going to focus more on God's response to the bad report and Moses' intercession, okay? And we're going to read a little bit of the report. So, like I said, let's go to Numbers chapter 13, verse 1, and it says, וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, שלח לך אנשים ויחדרו את ארץ כנען אשר אני נותן לבני ישראל איש אחד למטה אבותיו תשלחו כל נשיא בכם. And in English it says the following. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send out for yourself men, so that they may spy out the land of Canaan, which I am going to give to the sons of Israel. You shall send a man from each of their father's tribes, every one a leader among them. So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran at the command of the Lord, all the men who were heads of the sons of Israel. Now, and it goes on to the list of the men that were sent. Then it says, these are the names of the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land. But Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua. When Moses sent the spy out the land of Canaan, he said to them, go up there into the Negev, then go up into the hill country, see what the land is like, and whether the people who lived in it strong or weak, whether they are few and many. How is the land in which they live? Is it good or bad? And how are the cities in which they live? Are they like open camps or with fortifications? How is the land? Is it fat, lean? Are there trees in it or not? Make an effort to get some of the fruit of the land. Now, the time was the time of the first grapes, the first reap of grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Sin as far as Rehob at Lebo Hamath. Now, in verse 25 says the following. When they returned from spying out the land at the end of 40 days, they proceeded to come to Moses and Aaron, to all the congregation of the sons of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them, to all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. Thus they told them and said, we went into the land where you sent us, and it certainly does flow with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who live in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. Amalek is living in the land of the Negev, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites living in the hill country, and the Canaanites are living in the sea by the side of the Jordan. Caleb starts to quiet down the people before Moses and said, we should by all means go up and take possession of it, for we will surely overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we're not able to go up against the people, for they are too strong for us. So they gave out to the sons of Israel by report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone in spying out is a land of ours of inhabitants. All the people we saw in it are men of great size. There also saw the Nephilim, and we became like grasshoppers in our own sight. And so we were in their sight. Is the problem here? It starts when the report starts to seep into those 10 that were fearful of the size and the might of those people in that land. And Caleb is seeing that they're going to approach it this way. So he says, no, we can go and take over it. But Caleb is giving us the perspective of somebody that has, to an extent, witnessed the greatness of Adonai. He has witnessed what God has done for his people and how God has been there and provided for the people of Israel through this whole journey. And so the people of Israel are consistently reacting in to an extent in a mindset of the past, right? They're not conscious of what they have in front of them and what is ahead of them and what is leading them, which is the cloud and God's presence. And they are mistakenly underestimating God's power and dominance and God's word to an extent, because again, God is saying, this is the land that I promised to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, and so I have delivered you from Egypt and have brought you to this land that I have promised to do so years ago, right? Before you even decided to have a plan, I had planned to do this. I know the things that I want for you. Caleb was trying to do his part to remind the people, stay conscious, stay focused. We have God on our side. We have Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh on our side. We have the God which destroyed Egypt on our side. Their size, their dominance is nothing to Adonai. The people slander, or the way that it describes it in the Hebrew is that they cemented a seed of doubt and distress on the people, because they have been traveling this whole time. They already have been complaining. They have been frustrated with how they used to live and how they're living right now. And now they find out that the land in which they are going to acquire as a promise, as an inheritance, is crowded by giants and evil and powerful men that they cannot overturn or destroy, forgetting that God is the one that's going to do this assignment on their behalf as long as they obey him and they march forward and take over the land. Chapter 14 says the following: Then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the sons of Israel grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The whole congregation said to them, will that we had died in the land of Egypt, or will that we had died in the wilderness? Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives, our little ones will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us appoint leaders to return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces in the presence of the assembly of the congregation of the sons of Israel. Joshua the son of Nun and Caleb the son of Jephunneh, of those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, the land which you have passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, and land which flows milk and honey. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they will be our prey. Their protection has been removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them. And so here, again, Caleb and Joshua are trying to bring the people to focus again, right? They're saying that our faith and our power and our might and our deliverance is coming from Adonai. And it's a very simple message, right? They're trying to say, look at what we just went through. That's basically what they're saying. It's like, look at what we have went through. Every time you have complained, he has, to an extent, punished us or punished the community and those that have complained. And he has demonstrated his power through there. He also demonstrated his power in delivering us from Egypt. And he has provided for us, even in our complaining. And he has brought us to this border. And he has let us send spies into the land, even though he knows that he will deliver us. And you're still doubting God. They were still not giving God the opportunity to manifest himself and fulfill this promise. This is something that we do all the time. We get in our own way and we get in God's way, trying to figure out how to help God do his part. Okay. Now, but all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the glory of the Lord appeared in the tent of meeting to all the sons of Israel. The Lord said to Moses, how long will these people spurn me? How long will they not believe in me? Despite all the signs which I have performed in their midst, I will smite them with a pestilence and dispose them. And I will make you into a nation greater than, mightier than they. But Moses said to the Lord, then the Egyptians will hear it. For your strength, you have brought up the people from their midst. And they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land, and they have heard that you, O Lord, in the midst of his people, for you, O Lord, are seen eye to eye. while your cloud stands over them, and you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Now, if you slay these people as one man, then the nation who have heard of your name will say, because the Lord could not bring them, his people, into the land which he promised them by oath, therefore he slaughtered them in the wilderness. But now, I pray, let the power of the Lord be great, just as you have declared. The Lord is slow to anger and abundant in loving kindness, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but he will be by no means clear the guilt, the guilty visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Pardon, I pray, the iniquity of these people according to the greatness of your loving kindness, just as you also have forgiven these people from Egypt, even until now. So the Lord said, I have pardoned them according to your word. But indeed, as I live, all the earth will be filled with the glory of the Lord. Surely all the men who have seen my glory and my signs which I have performed in Egypt and the wilderness, yet have put me to the test these 10 times, and have not listened to my voice, shall by no means see the land which I swore to their fathers, nor shall any of those who spurned me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has had a different spirit, has followed me fully, and I will bring into the land which he entered, and his descendants shall take possession of it. And it's very interesting, because it says a different spirit. It's interesting. Like God says, Joshua, he has a different spirit. What is that spirit, right? Because all of those men went into the same land. All of those men saw the same thing that Caleb did and Joshua did. All of those men, all those leaders have seen everything that Caleb has seen. So what's the difference? What is the difference between Caleb and the other leaders, or Joshua and the other leaders? You're right. Their ability to have faith in that which they have seen and that in which they have not seen. And remember, they saw everything. So it was kind of easier for them, right? Like I always say to the youth, we are called to believe what's in the book by faith. But they saw this, and they were mature enough spiritually to say, I know nothing. I will continue to follow him. And remember, this is promise. This is a promise that was given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Mainly Abraham. And God is trying to fulfill it through these people. And these people keep rejecting it and keep rejecting their identity and their ability not only to take the land, but protect their people, preserve their name, exalt God's name. They're rejecting the ability to not only be better, but to go into one land and make that land better. And not only make that land better, but make the world better. Because that's the point, right? The point was for Israel to go into the land, purify it, cleanse it, remove idolatry from it, and establish God's name. And from there, light to the nations, light to the world. But they're consistent stiff neck, like it says in the Bible, and their hardness of heart, the ability to understand that they are not in control. No matter how much you want to control the situation, you're not in control. You only do your best. Your best is not set to your own standards. Your best is set to the God standard. So God establishes a standard, and you do your best to maintain that. Right? You don't see God's standard and establish your own standards and say, well, I'm doing my best. No, you have to get up here and do your best to stay up here. Now, do you stumble? Do you struggle? Yes, that's I guess that's part of it, right? That's part of being in this world, right? Where sin is abiding and is at the door. But just like Caleb did, he was able to represent God's honor and represent him. He had a different spirit. That different spirit was obeying God. That was the only difference. He had the spirit of obedience compared to the others. He had the spirit and the faith of God's power compared to the others. And it's interesting because Caleb, and I learned this with, Pastor Gabriel last year, Caleb leads the tribe of Judah. But Caleb is not from the tribe of Judah. right? So this man who is not a descendant of Judah leads the kingship, right? Eventually the kingship leadership, the lineage of kingship into the land, and he represents them. And he's the one that brings the good report, the one that is not even of the people. Moses intercedes for the people, right? And he says something very interesting, and it's something that I'm going to close out with. Moses says that don't destroy them and don't start over with me, because it's not about me. It's not about Moses. It's about you. It's about you, Father, and your name being exalted and represented. If you destroy them, the world will see that you were not able to fulfill your mission. And in that moment, God found, again, through Moses, that he will be able to fulfill his mission through him. And that Moses will be a light to the nations with his example. Because Moses understood, just like Caleb understood, just like Joshua understood. It wasn't about them. It was about him. And if they obeyed him and stayed consistent, by his mercy, they will inherit the land. By his mercy, they will have salvation. That's my line for this year, for this cycle. What does YASHAV want? I know my teachings are not the most fancy, they're not the most informational. Sometimes I do corny jokes, but please, if you learn anything from me, is humble yourself to know that it's not about you. It's about the Creator, YASHAV, the God of Israel. And trust me, there's no man in this world that has more power than him. So, like I say, stay consistent. Read the Torah portion. I didn't put no questions. I might just put some questions and answers. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see in the description. Like I always say, like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put it in the comment section down below. Share with any youth, with anybody. And thank you. Thank you for the support. Shalom, shalom. Shabbat shalom. Shavuot tov.